Hello again, everybody. I was asked a question by a potential client recently, and so it's an important one, and so I kind of want to weigh in. And the client asked me, or the potential client asked me, they said they'd recently filed a claim for a storm that struck their home, and their adjuster told them that they needed to get 3 estimates and submit them to the insurance carrier, and that was how the claim had to be handled, and that it would not progress until the client or potential client provided at least 3 estimates to the adjuster. The question was posed to me was multifaceted. Was 1, do I really need to get 3 estimates? And 2, why am I being asked this? And several other questions in regards to that claim. So this is part of my service to the community, as I do a lot of consulting in this regards. And so my response to this is a little cynical, but go with me down the rabbit hole. Insurance as a whole is a business, right? And as a business, their goal is to make money, right? And when they're paying out claims, part of that goal is to pay out as little as money as possible. And you can't fault a business for doing that or for wanting that, because if they're just writing out as much money as possible, then they're not going to stay in business very long. So why would they want 3 estimates or 2 or 5? Well, 3 is everybody knows 3 estimates, and that's kind of common knowledge that's in the vernacular. The cultural vernaculars get 3 of this and 3 of that, so it's a nice, more or less even round number. But they want multiple estimates so that they can kind of pick and choose what's the lowest one, of course. You kind of see where I'm going with this. So if you have 3 estimates, one for $15,000, one for $12,000, and one for $10,000, which one do you think they're going to go with, right? As long as they're all substantially similar. Now, if the $10,000 one only covers half of the damage, then you have a bit of a problem. But if they're all generally substantially the same, obviously they're going to go with the $10,000 one. There's no contest. Now, as a homeowner, if you don't know the difference between those 3 estimates, like, are they using the same estimating software? Are they using the same pricing standards? Are they using the same material? Are they counting labor the same way? Are they assessing taxing the right way? These are all very, very big and important questions, right? Now, sometimes homeowners are very savvy with this. Sometimes, usually not, right? So this is kind of where an adjuster can kind of twist things around a little bit, and sometimes unknowingly, sometimes knowingly. And you don't want to throw too much shade on somebody who's just trying to do their job. So the question is then, do I have to give 3 estimates to the insurance carrier, to the adjuster in this case? Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. In your policy, there's the reasonable expectation that you comply and you assist the insurance company's investigation into your claim. And that's reasonable, right? If they want to come out and inspect your home after a claim, you can't expect them to just take your word for it. They want to come out and get pictures and look at things. That's pretty reasonable, right? If you have documentation that helps them in that, right? If you have your own pictures, or you have some kind of report that you generated from some expert, then they're going to want that, and that's reasonable. However, where it gets sticky is the estimates, because what the insurance company cannot do, and again, this is based on which state you're on, so make sure you check your local laws, but what the insurance company cannot do is tell you which contractor or worker or plumber or electrician or whoever, they can't tell you who you're supposed to use. And that's big, because if they're picking between 3 estimates, they're by default telling you which contractor you're supposed to use. Not necessarily telling you functionally, but they're telling you that financially. So they're steering the conversation, and they're steering you towards one particular contractor. Now, the adjuster's going to say, well, you can pick whoever you want, but this is the bid we're choosing. So it's a bit of a gray area, right? So the question you should immediately go to is, please show me my policy where I have to submit 3 bids or 3 estimates. And that's always the first question that should run through your head when you get a request or a demand, and sometimes it can be very, very direct, from an insurance adjuster or an insurance person, is where in my policy ... right? Show me my policy, or where in my policy does it say ... that I have to this or that I have to that. And then you should expect a response. So in this case, I advised the potential client to find a contractor, right? Because then that's open and shut. I have a contractor, I've picked a contractor, and now I don't have to because I have one, and anything else is now interference. But in absence of that, then no, I don't have an estimate, but it shouldn't, and it absolutely will not stop a claim from progressing. So, and that's kind of the red flag too, is if an adjuster or any insurance person is saying, I can't investigate your claim until you give me this piece of paper, what that means is I won't. It's not I can't, because there's a lot of ways that somebody can investigate your claim without necessarily having something as simple as an estimate, because an insurance company is going to do their own estimate. So why would they need an estimate from somebody else? Right? That they're not obligated to pay on somebody else's estimate necessarily. And sometimes they are, and there are laws that might say that. But they're going to produce their own estimate. So that certainly doesn't stop them from investigating your claim. So things to keep in mind when somebody from an insurance rep of any kind tells you these things. Maybe it's true, so don't go, and the takeaway from this is don't necessarily just start assuming bad actors and bad things, because that's a world that we don't need to live in, where everybody suspects everything's terrible. However, my advice is start thinking, where in my policy does it say this? And just ask the question. It's just a conversation at that point. So, if you have any questions, hit me in the comments, text, email. Otherwise, I'll see you all around the horn.